So I'm down here in the shed with all the miscellaneous knickknacks, you know, transmissions, cylinder heads, engine block, wheels, tires, all that good stuff. Just got done riding the dirt bike, so I'm exceptionally sweaty and whatnot, but I figured, you know what? I'm going to come down here and have a look. It's something that I bought a while back. Now this right here I don't really care about because it's not something that I can really use, but this one right here, this is something which I'm wanting to grab. Just some of this crap out of the way. So right here in this carburetor pile, we have one heavy heck of a carburetor. Down I go. This right here is a carburetor that a lot of people won't really know exactly what it is, just simply because it's a very old school style carburetor. What this is a Rochester 4GC. This is a carburetor which was used, I don't know exactly what year it started, but I know it ended production about 1967 was the last year. They quit using this in favor of the Quadrajet, which came out also in 67. Interesting thing, I'm actually using one of these very carburetors on my Impala. So we'll see if I can't do something with this carburetor. Folks, I'm getting ready to take this here carburetor apart. This thing right here, I figured I'd just go ahead and tell you a little bit about it before I get down to actually taking everything apart and showing you the insides. So what this is a Rochester 4GC. This particular one is 486 CFM. Yeah, kind of small for a 4-barrel, but that's one of the reasons I really like these things. So, everyone goes and they rant and rave about the Quadrajet, saying, oh my god, it's like, the best thing in the world. Well, this carburetor, let me tell you, I've driven with one of these for years now. I've got one of these on the 350 that's in my Impala. It was the first 4-barrel I ever had in my life. I got the car, swapped a 4-barrel into it about the time I was 17, drove it through the rest of high school, my early days, and in 18 I ended up going and swapping a 400 into it just because the 350 got kind of wore out. Well, I eventually decided to swap the 350 back into it, and I've been driving around with that old carburetor on it a lot. This thing right here, it's the same CFM as the one that's on the car. The only reason I have this one here pulling it apart is because I'd like to use it instead of the one on the car, because it has this right here that I could hook up to my vacuum advance, once I put a canister on the car. And I fiddled around with the one that's on the car a lot, jacked up the jetting so it runs super rich and gets terrible gas mileage. I can't find any of my jets, and the only ones that I know for certain I didn't send a drill bit through are the ones that are in this carburetor. So I'm pulling it apart mainly to get the jets out of it, so that way I can get some better mileage on mine. Go from 66s that are in it right now back down to, hopefully this thing has the 57 jets that were in that carburetor from the factory. So I grabbed this one, which is sitting on the floor just over here across the way. This one right here is a 553 CFM carburetor. Big performance upgrade. Now, the primaries are the same size, but they increase the secondary, so you can't say that the Quadrajet was the first spread bore that they ever had from GM. The Rochester 4Jet was spread bore long before, because this thing, the one that's running on my Impala is from 1962. So yeah, hopefully, I don't know if this thing will even fit onto the intake that I have, but we'll see. I'm gonna see if I can't get this apart. Maybe I'll just use parts out of this one. Maybe I'll try to put it on the car. So we're down to the bowl, and this right here is where I say this carburetor is far superior to the Quadrajet. Just look at all that capacity that this thing has. Yes, this thing may be lacking as far as airflow goes, this particular unit being 553 CFM versus the Quadrajet being upwards of say 750, 800 CFM, whatever they're rated at. But this thing has a fuel capacity. I mean, this right here is the size of the fuel bowl in the Quadrajet. maybe about 2/3 the size, but still far more fuel capacity. So I'm going to dig into this thing a little bit more, make sure that everything's opened up. Looks like my power valve in this is actually moving, which is good. So I'm going to dig into this particular unit a little more, see what we got going on, and there's a couple things inside here that those of you who've been around Edelbrock's, AVS's, you'll recognize some of this. Alright, got it finished pulled apart. Still got a couple linkages and whatnot on here, but this thing's about to be dunked into some evapor rust, because let's be honest, thing's pretty nasty. So whenever the way that I got this thing, I actually pulled it off of a it was either a 59 or a 60. I think it's a 1960 Pontiac Star Chief. Had the 389 in it. It's a pretty cool car. So this right here, this is what we call the air valve. It's kind of what I was alluding to with you guys with the Edelbrock AVSs. You'll kind of recognize this. The only thing I don't like about this carburetor is this right here, because in order to tune this, you actually have to pull the carburetor all the way apart, because this sits right here in this pocket. So in order to tune it, you got to pull it apart, pull this out, and there's a little tiny set screw right there that you use to adjust the spring. Pretty fun. Actually, you have to pull that set screw out, and then there's another set screw on the bottom of it. But aside from that, this thing's pretty clean. I'm gonna let it soak for a little bit, and then once I'm done and got everything all nice and cleaned up, we'll get back to it. Alright, you probably aren't going to be able to see that, but this here jet is a number 68. That's, for some reason, the size that I decided to put in this carburetor way back whenever I still drove it, in high school. Don't ask me what was going through my mind. I just thought the thing needed to be richer and richer. This carburetor from the factory had a 57. I don't have a 57 readily available, so I'm going to put a 59 in it that I pulled out of that other carb. Alright, jet change is done. I'm just going to go grab a couple little things here and there to finish put this thing back together. A new seal for this here accelerator pump plunger, because it is well, it was gone. It was just straight up gone, and it would evaporate all the fuel out. So I've got to pump air into the fuel system to be able to prime the thing before I can even fire the car up if it's been sitting for more than 2 days. So I'm gonna do that, get this car put back together, and I'll see y'all later. We got her all put back together. Some of y'all may be asking why in the world I'd use such an old carburetor that's 10 years older than the car. That's a 62 model carb on a 66 model intake in a 72 model car. Well, here's the thing. I like these little things. They drive so nice. They fire right up. You don't even have to give them any pump shot, and bam, they'll just light right up. As long as the weather's kind of warm. And big thing, they're cheap. Unless you look at the oddball guy here and there that really wants about $100. Some people think that these things are something that they're not and worth, a ton of money. But aside from crazy people like that, these things are really affordable. The one that I'm running on this car, I bought for $5 at a swap meet. I've got another one, the other one I'm working on out of that old Pontiac Star Chief. I bought that for $5, and I've got two more. I paid a dude $20 a piece at a swap meet to get, but I have 4 of these things all in for $50. 2 486s and 2 553s. So you can't go wrong with these things. If you're just looking for a driver, something that's cool and doesn't have just the same carburetor that everyone's got, it's a nice option, and I do recommend using them. But anyway, I think I'm gonna call it quits for this. Hope y'all enjoyed my rambling ons about these random things. And once I get a little bit of work done to that 553, maybe I'll update y'all on that. In the meantime, adios. Old Red Daddy wanted to say hi, by the way. Red Dead kitty. He's an autistic kitty. He's a good kitty, though. Look at him. Yeah, he likes the butt scratches. Look at that jacked up face.